Macy Gage from the Tangentialist blog digs up and discusses events and experiences from her own collaged history on having a stigmatized condition known as bipolar. She relates, reflects, and refocuses it into infectiously funny anecdotes and amusing stories that will have you in stitches. Being a roaming distracted artist, that reinvents and reimagines her goals constantly, this podcast takes you down a twisting rabbit hole of icons and avenues, of slightly familiar yet offbeat occurrences. Join her every other week as she delves into her own bizarre memory banks, pulling out some eccentric moments that capture the intimacy on the ups and downs of this disorder, lived out in her electric days of her rebellious youth. And today we have a special guest artist from Montreal, Claudia Dorey, and she will be discussing her story. I will need to give you a bit of a backstory. She started in the art world in a more peculiar way. She had a health concern that left her with a new way of expressing her emotions and thoughts. She found a sense of introspection that gave her an incredible way of sharing her internal aches. Her style is unique, as it is her body speaking to her, sometimes in ways she doesn't even recognize until later. So let's take a deep dive into her story. So how exactly did you sort of enter the art world? How did that actually come about, or was it a real gradual thing?
So for me, it wasn't gradual at all. It was like one day to the next. So when I got sick, because I used to devote my life to sports afterwards, it was really like, okay, well, you don't have any more access to sports, so you're doing nothing right now, and you have nothing you can do. And when I was younger, I did go to an art school, elementary school, so we developed a lot, like we did theater, dancing, painting. We did so many things. So for me, that's kind of how it started. But it's something that I did let go after the age of like 10, 12. And painting wasn't like something I would really I was passionate about. And then when I got sick, I kind of reintegrated it to my life. And it used to just be abstract painting. And for me, it was just like a way to express myself because I just didn't have the words anymore to do it. So it was a lot better for me to just be able to like have something tangible in front of me and be able to create through it. And that's kind of how it started. And then from there, I started making paintings with a bit more like faces and stuff like that. Like the painting that's right behind us. I don't know if you could see it well.
Yep, I can see it. This is a painting in her home, Claudia's home, and it's quite a large one. I'm guessing 4 by 4 feet maybe, and it's mostly white with blue. It looks like blue or teal. It looks like a letter, almost like a big letter T, but it's also faded in certain areas, and then there's like it looks like a blue sort of wash with white in it in the left-hand corner, but then there's this faint sort of outline almost, or at least the darker areas of a skull in the top right sort of quadrant of the painting.
Essentially, that was one of my first paintings I've done. It was a really big canvas, and I was just like, I want to throw everything on it. And there's a skull in the middle of it that I didn't even know was there until I actually looked at it once it was done. And like in the middle of it, there's just a skull. And I would have never seen it if I just like, I don't know, I feel like my body really does speak to me, and it does create things that sometimes my mind just can't. So that's kind of how I entered the art world, and since then became a daily thing. If I can't paint, I'll draw, and it's just like I always have to create somewhat in a day. How about yourself?
Oh, I've actually stopped in the last few years. I had a bad experience with a gallery, and I've kind of let that sort of be a cloud over me for too long, but all that you're sharing with me has really inspired me to go back to it and not let a terrible experience of a gallery just, cloud my creativity, like I need to just get back to it. And that's something definitely to look forward to, because I have been missing it, but I just thought, no, I'm doing podcasting now. I don't have time, but it's like I can make time and feel the creativity coming through me and just not be restrictive of it as I have been over these last few years. So I really thank you for contacting me and just getting me back into to being an artist, because yeah, it's something that I've heard people before in the past say, "Oh, I used to be an artist or I used to be
Yeah.
creative," and it's like, no, I just would say to them, "No, you're just taking a break right now," because in a way, I guess that's what these last few years have been for me. I mean, I don't know. I just thought, well, no, maybe that part of my life is done. Like maybe I just don't have it in me, but I just don't have it in me because I just let that experience cloud my judgment, and yeah, I shouldn't have let that happen, but well, here we are, and I'm gonna get back to it, and I thank you for that. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad if I did have somewhat of an impact. I'm glad.
yeah, it's something positive. It's very nice. So thank you for that.
No worries. It's nothing.
It's been good. It's been very good. Yeah, I just kind of let myself think that way, and it's like, no, I'm just. Well, you've probably heard that saying that people say, like that they're the ones that are stopping themselves, or they're the ones that are
Reading their limits.
creating their limits, and they're the ones that are in the way of their success. And I think that has
Mhm.
been my case for the longest time. I'm like, I'm stopping myself, and it's like, no, just you've shown me, just go ahead and just do it, and don't be thinking things don't be my own obstacle, right? And that's something very, very positive and very.
Mhm.
It's just something to be thankful for. It's good to be thinking that way again.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely.
And yeah, so you said you went to school, but it was more just like your earlier years, like it wasn't like later. Yeah, because I was like, we didn't talk about that. We didn't, and I thought, well, maybe she just didn't, because people don't have to go to school. They can teach it themselves, and some really great artists have just taught themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been to school in arts.
Hmm.
I went to elementary school, but like that I was from the age of 3 to 12 or 11.
No,
Like it
yeah,
doesn't
doesn't matter.
really it's not like very technical or anything like that. So for me, it was just something I really see my creative process as something that
Hmm.
each stroke is part of my creativity. So I don't want to be told how to create something. I want my own imagination to develop and understand how I can attain that goal, example, and how every single person will be able to attain that goal differently.
Hmm.
And for me, my creativity, if I go to school, they will tell me the easiest or the most efficient way of doing it.
Hmm.
But I don't believe that the most efficient way is the best way. I think the best way is
Hmm.
how your brain would do it by itself. So that's why I don't want to go to school in art, because I don't want to um, have that kind of bias of just doing what I'm told and be like, oh yeah, it's true, it is more efficient. But I don't necessarily want it to be more efficient. I want it to be true to me and my way of doing it.
Yeah, that's one thing I
So
noticed
yeah.
in school too. That I went to Ontario College of Art and Design University, and that's how it is with the teachers. They just want to teach you how to paint how they paint.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's not why I'm paying you hundreds of dollars to just show me the one way that you think I should paint. And that happens to be the way you paint, It's just,
Yeah.
that is definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
The only good part I found about OCAD in some ways was the actual, like the liberal studies, like some of the, like a lot of the art history stuff that I learned. I think that was really good. But yeah, when they're showing you just how to be an artist as they are, it's like, okay, you're not really teaching me.
Yeah, we're not evolving either, because art is like the future. It's so much more than just. So
Yeah.
I feel like we need to have that kind of innovative way of painting, that if we're just going through school to learn it, well, it'll be a lot harder for us to just kind of find that own path, because we're going to have to kind of deconstruct what we were taught. But when you do it by yourself, you kind of just like create it as it goes. So
Yeah, you're not limiting yourself or restricting yourself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing I definitely remember with OCAD is like I didn't want to learn to to paint like certain artists, you know, but to pass the class, that's how you had to do it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so how were your experiences with the galleries? Did you find it difficult to get shows in the beginning, or was it actually your research and being prolific that actually made it easier?
So research is definitely something that has helped me. So I now follow like certain pages that talk about that are calling for artists, stuff like that. So for that aspect, it was easier. But because I did study in art galleries, it is harder to be able to be shown because you're not necessarily taken as seriously. But I tell myself, if a gallery doesn't want to show me because I did go to school in art, that means it's not the right gallery.
That's not the one for you, yeah.
Yeah, because if people understand art the same way as I do, the schooling part would have nothing to do with it, and they wouldn't even ask me.
Mhm.
And if they would ask me, it would just be more out of interest of my story and my path, and not out of judgment.
Mhm.
So I always see my story and my like path as something that is beautiful and I wouldn't want to change. So if people want me to change it, I just tell myself that we're not compatible, and I don't see it as a flaw in my process and in my path.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that has really helped me, because I'm just very determined, and I'm not easily like dragged. I kind of just always have my main focus, and from there I kind of see who can help me and who wants to help me or who can collaborate with me along the way, instead of, oh, there's constantly roadblocks. I kind of see it as, oh, I'm just being challenged to really find my people.
Mhm.
And I find that having that perspectives really helps me to always stay super optimistic and driven. And that's why I actually believe I'm going to be a successful artist.
Mhm.
Like, I say this and I'm like, I'm going to be a successful artist because I want to so badly, and I don't let people bring me down.
No, and
Yeah.
it already seems like you are a successful artist with all that I've seen of your website and all the things that you've been doing. It seems like you're there already. Like I mean, it's good to keep thinking that you need to get there just to keep maybe driving you forward, but I think you're pretty much there. I think you're in it right now. So you're in the successful artist sort of category, like from what I've seen of of what you've been doing. So
You.
yeah. Have you had any of your work outside of Quebec, or are you just continuing to just work sort of more in your community and finding that is more sort of a benefit?
So I did a show in Toronto, but I've never like exposed really more than just one evening. So it's mostly Montreal, Quebec.
Mhm.
Um, I'm talking with a curator in Milan, so hopefully this summer or this fall I could go to Milan.
Oh, nice.
For my art. So that would be really cool, but that's still like on hold. We just started discussing it because I've been in contact with her for a couple of months. They wanted me to do a project with them, but it was online. And it was like metaverse, and my art is very textured. So for me, it's really important that we see it in real life because there's a lot more depth. So I refused because I was like, you know what, I want it to be seen in person. So they recontacted me today to tell me that they were doing a show in Milan and they would like me to participate. So I would have to get canvases that are like the ones you can roll and not already framed because they're also way too expensive to bring them to Europe.
To ship them.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to do new paintings for that exhibit. But it's just like small projects like that small, for me they're pretty big. But projects like that like I'm excited for, and I do see it becoming international. But for the time being, I'm mostly focusing on Montreal because I do want to grow and actually have something sustainable in my city to be, and like afterwards be able to expand. Because I feel like a good foundation allows us to like really grow instead of having like kind of like little sprouses many places. So yeah.
You don't want to spread yourself too thin either.
Yeah, exactly.
By putting yourself in like multiple cities and throughout Canada, and then the States, and then like I don't know, somewhere in Europe, and then it's just it's like it's just I see what you mean, that it seems like it's just it's like scattering your creativity that without keeping it central, which I understand, having it like you said in Quebec as sort of like it's like your roots, right? So it's like it's just creating that base where you create that network of sort of almost like a fan base, I guess, as well as just creating your roots, kind of just establishing that, and that makes total sense.
Exactly. And I have one of my friends, I actually met her here, and she lives in Belgium. So she bought one of my prints and then she brought it to Belgium. So it's just like little things like that. Honestly, it's really having it exposed somewhere. If it's in one person's house in Montreal, for me, it's better because afterwards, if they want to buy a painting, it's a lot cheaper. I don't have to like ship it or anything like that, which would be their cost, but often it adds to a cost. And some people sometimes like they don't necessarily want to pay shipping that's going to be $200 or $300. Like it does add up. So having like just my prints be put in someone's house can just create a discussion, and those discussions are so valuable because it's just like, oh, yeah, it's Claudia, a girl I know, or oh, Claudia, she's a Montreal-based artist or stuff like that. So I think also when somebody's from our city, we're more prone to encouraging them because we're like, oh, well, it's local. We know it's made here. There's not the shipping. It's better for the environment. It's supporting our city. So I think there's a lot of like that sense of, oh, like I connect to this person automatically because we come from the same city. And that is also valuable. And I can actually meet these people in person. I think that to be able to understand my art and love my art, you also need to kind of know me, because it can be seen as a bit odd or intriguing, or not necessarily like you don't know what is going on in my paintings. So sometimes getting to know me helps understand the reflection of the painting and what my process was, because even my poems attached are pretty abstract. So like there's always room for interpretation. So when you get to know me, sometimes there is that like that understanding and that like connection to my human being and my art. Yeah.
It's like another layer of
Yeah.
understanding, right? Yeah. That
Like,
people would understand, that people would have with that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I like that aspect of having them in my city, just to be able to really connect with them and them connect with my art even more, because it is, I would say, my main form of expression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we'll be right back. So where do you find your inspirations, or does it just come to you?
Yeah, honestly. My inspiration, I'd say, is mostly, I don't even know how to explain it. It's more so my subconscious speaking.
Mm.
What I mean by that is, like the painting behind me, I didn't even know I had painted a skull until I actually looked at it.
Oh yeah, I see it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Oh, you can see it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because when I first saw it, I didn't really see. I just saw the blue,
yeah.
and then but no, yeah, now I could see it.
Yeah. So it's just stuff like that, that when I look at my painting, sometimes I'm painting and I often paint eyes,
Mhm.
but it's just that one line of paint, just a little mark,
Mhm.
can just, I can just envision a whole world. And it's not, I don't feel as though it's my mind envisioning it. It's as though my hand is just creating a line and there's just a face that appears. And it's like, oh, like it's there. And I just need to add 2, 3 lines and the face just appears.
Mhm.
And it's as though all these characters that I create are just parts of my brain, just like flashing and just appearing on a canvas. And from there, each character symbolizes a reality of mine, a concept that I think about.
Mhm.
And then once I'm done, I look at the colors, I look at the types of traits and just the brushwork, and then I understand what my body was telling me. So my inspiration is not me looking at a canvas or looking at a sunset and being like, oh wow, I want to paint that.
Mhm.
It's really just my mind taking plenty of information on a day-to-day basis,
Mhm.
and me being a product of my environment just puts them together and creates a painting and
Mhm.
something that, like, my body, information my body took up on instead of my mind.
Mhm. It's like you're channeling your creativity from your body
Mm-hmm.
onto the canvas,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just
Yeah.
coming right through you without any sort of filtering from the brain
Yeah.
to change it, or like you were saying about how going to art school and how they restrict you. You don't have any of that filtering either, so it's just coming right through you.
Yeah. And I think that my health issues really helped me to create that, because
Mhm.
it would get immense brain fogs. So I just, some days I just could not think. Like I just couldn't process anything. Just, it was really, really confusing. And when I painted, I felt as though I wasn't thinking, but I was still in control of what I was doing.
Mhm.
And that was just for me something that I absolutely adore, and that's why I fell in love with painting again, because it's like I finally feel like I can express myself even though I don't feel like my mind is there.
Mm.
And so yeah, so for me it was just like painting became that, and it's just now I my creativity is something that is always led by my body, and it's
Mhm.
never my mind. And that's why, exactly, when it comes to school, I don't want to go to school, because every paintbrush and every like line to me is vital to my painting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite the vehicle that just has taken over your everything. It sounds like it's quite a good connection that because I think I think I understand what you mean when I was starting to go to school, and how they kind of they kind of they teach that out of you, you know? I think that's what actually happens. It's like, oh geez. There's
Mm-hmm.
good and bad to school, but that's one of the parts that I remember now, that they unteach that from you.
Mm-hmm.
But there must be a way to get that back, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just not thinking about those things that are restrictive, or how you have to paint or draw a certain way. Just let the creativity come through you, and just keep at it, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think we're also taught to see art as we want the most people possible to like our art.
Yes.
We're brought up to believe like, oh, I want everyone to love my art, and I want people to look at it, and I want to have positive feedback.
Yes.
And I think that we are taught as humans, is everything we do, we want to do it good and we want to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Is we've created a concept of what good and well is.
Mm-hmm.
I personally do not believe in it. I don't believe there's something that is good or bad. I believe it is whether or not we express ourselves at our most authentic way, and then the repercussions it has on the outside world. But when I paint, I know that I'm expressing myself and it's only doing good to me, and it's people that won't like my art. It's actually a good thing. I see it as actually a great thing,
Yeah.
because it shows that my art is not meant for everyone and it's not liked by everyone, but they're still connecting to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at my art and you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, there's something about it, maybe the colors, maybe the eyes you're feeling stared at, might be uncomfortable, but there's a connection, there's something that it's making you feel a certain way, and that can allow you to kind of introspect on, why is it making me feel uncomfortable or weird?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal of art. The goal of art is to always have a canvas or have whatever form of art it is, but a way to reflect on yourself and introspect on yourself. And I think that that's what my goal with my art is. I love when people don't like my art, because I tell myself, okay, how do they connect to it?
Mm-hmm. They're just not understanding it in the way that you
Mm-hmm.
presented it to be. Like, I see what you mean. That it's not for them.
Yeah. And it's just that,
And that's okay. That it's
yeah.
not for everybody. It's like, it's for the people that understand your connection with your creativity.
And if they don't connect to it, well, it's not that they're not connecting to it, they are connecting to it,
Mm.
but just in a more, it's not comfortable for them. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that people will look at it and maybe they're going to try to understand what is making it uncomfortable for them. And that leads to introspection. And that is so valuable to me, because when I create, I want people to be intrigued and kind of question what is going on. Because that's why I do a lot of eyes. Because eyes for me are a reflection of like the soul. And when you're being stared at in public, we're a lot more prone of making sure, like, kind of looking at our actions, like we're taught to do that, and then it's something you have to deconstruct, obviously, but it's something that a lot of people do. So I paint eyes to remind people that you should be the only person that stares back at you, without like, you don't need people, but sometimes looking at a painting that has many eyes will make you think like, oh, I'm being stared at, like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of takes it away from the people that are around you and are either looking at you or just doing their own thing and not even paying attention to you, but you still feel like they are.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder that your opinion is the only valuable one to, like, in every spectrum of your life. And
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, it's funny because you do the eyeballs, right? And I actually used to do eyeballs too. And my husband, he said, "Why do you do that? You know that's uncomfortable. People aren't going to like that." And so I stopped doing it. And you're showing me that as long as you have a way of explaining or understanding why you do that or why it's a central piece to your artwork, then who cares what everybody else thinks? It's you're the creative one. You're the one that's being the artist and putting the work out there for that very reason that there's there you have an understanding of why you do that. And yeah, there's me again, just like the art school, just unteaching everything, the good parts of being creative. That yeah, it's all about choice and choosing how you want your creativity to to express itself and to be something relevant in society where, as you said, the having the eyes staring at you is uncomfortable. But why is it uncomfortable? What is it about each person that makes them uncomfortable? Why does that happen? And like you said, it's about the introspection of figuring that out, that whole process. And yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's really, really good.
Mm. Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, but
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I was just all about, okay, fine, I'll take it out.
Yeah.
But no, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about, no, this is part of my creative process. I'm doing it because of whatever reason I was doing it. But I think I liked making people feel uncomfortable because I do that with my illness or my Tangentialist podcast, which is about being bipolar and having a brain injury. But then, it's like telling people about that, it makes them uncomfortable. And it's like, there's just maybe I just like making people feel uncomfortable, and maybe that's okay too. It's part of the creative process, right? So,
Yeah. And I think that when you stay true to yourself and you stay true to your way of expressing yourself, that is when you are unstoppable. Honestly, like I believe that. My grandmother came to me few on the day of my birthday. I went to see her to have lunch because I hadn't seen her in a couple of weeks and wanted to make sure she was okay. And I get there and we're having lunch and she tells me like, "Oh, your art used to be so good and then you kind of changed it to something funky and weird." And she was like, "I don't think people are going to buy that." And I looked at her and I was like, "I don't really care if people don't want to buy it. I'll find people that are going to buy it. Even if it's 0.001% of people that do like my art, that 0.001% of people are my audience. And they're the people that connect with me. And not everyone's going to with me. My art is different. It's not mainstream. It's not the type of thing that you'll see in every single house. It's not a bouquet of flowers that kind of is simple and easy. And for me, it's my mind. And even when I interact with people, not everyone's going to connect with me. Some people are going to be like, "Oh, she's weird." But that's okay. And I like that aspect of me. I like the fact that I'm a bit different and that I will use this way of creating a world for myself and express myself and kind of show the world that being different does not remove my value. It's just showing different perspectives of the world. And I think that we often kind of marginalize people that have different perspectives, and we always try to mold people into the same thing. And that my art is going against that. It is going against erasing part of who I am because society is uncomfortable with that part of me. And I think that those differences are what people should most embrace about me and make people more curious about the world and understand different people and understand different interests. And I think that's super important and it's not something we do enough. And that's why I want my art to also be something that is way more accessible and a lot of people see it, because I want that to be a reminder for everyone, a reminder to be like, you know what, that person does different art and it's not that common, or I've never seen it before, but somehow I'm looking at it. And that person comes from Montreal, an example. I'm in Alaska and they're seeing it. So it's a reminder that it is valuable even if it's different. And mainstream can also be valuable, but it's just that I really want people to remind themselves that their differences is what makes them them. And that's important. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is very important. So I was wondering, how have you been able to, over time, like with your artwork, have you ever, like as you were saying, your work is very different, and you're okay with people not liking it. That's one thing I noticed as an artist and going into galleries and like the work being, criticized or going through the whole system, and it's just like, well, I don't know. I found I guess it's my I guess it's my ego couldn't handle all the judgment. How have you been able to just reinterpret it as something positive? Like, is it just you just trained your brain to just do that, or I found it was just too hard for me to go with the judgment for so long. I was like, I can't handle this.
I think that it really came with, I've like became a lot more confident, and I write a lot. So writing for me is a way for me to really process my information. I've written thousands and thousands of pages. Like I write every single day and for as long as I need. And I think that that has allowed me to understand myself so well, and understand that I also evolve on a day-to-day basis. So I never truly know who I am, but I know my essence and I know what I like about myself. And I think that that has allowed me to have that confidence, has allowed me to tell myself, regardless of what other people think, what I'm doing is simply expressing myself. I'm not looking for validation. I am just showing how my world works. And I'm doing it as well as I can for people to understand my world. They don't need to like it, because I like my world and I like the way I function and I like the way I think and I like how optimistic I am. So
Mhm.
for me, it was never, oh, I'm showing the world to kind of validate what I'm living. But for me is, I love my world and I've found ways to express myself in tangible ways to be able to show the world. So I don't see it as I'm exposing to understand the world and see how the world reacts to it. It's I'm showing the world how my world works. And that's just it. And the people that want to see it, they can see it. The people that like it, good for them. The people that don't like it, that's fine. Good for them as well. They're going to find other artists.
Mm.
There are artists everywhere. Every single person
Yes.
is an artist. So I just find that art is simply me expressing
Mhm.
myself. And I want to devote my life to explain how I feel and just how I view this world, and question the world we're living in to be able to express my new thoughts. So for me, it's more like I go through the world and I understand I kind of grasp the concept of or earth and stuff like that
Mhm.
in my own way. Then I channel it, kind of see how I sit with different opinions and different perspectives. And then afterwards, once I have my own opinion or my own theories, that's when I transform it into a painting. And then afterwards, once it's on a painting, I introspect on, okay, was what was this painting about? What concept had my body understood that is now like something I'm going to mentally figure out.
And we'll be right back.
For me, the judgment is not something positive or negative. I don't really take it. Like if somebody tells me, oh, I love your art, great, you connect with it, but it doesn't make my art great. And if somebody doesn't like my art and they tell me, oh, you're a terrible artist, it doesn't make my art bad. It just makes my art an extension of me. And I am a person that will not be liked by everyone. I can't. So I'm just a human, and I don't know what the average is. No, there's no average on earth, really. It's more so where we come from, who we are brought up with. So that average level, or that kind of line, for me, it doesn't exist. So I'm just there. And then the world that creates around me is just another world. And I'm just going to find people that are going to connect with me and resonate with me. And that's why I will see it as success, because I'm going to find people that understand me. So I can't be put on a scale. It is what I want to find the people that will make me feel, actually allow myself to find the people that will make me feel successful and myself successful. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense, rather than thinking that all the different art shows that are out there, whatever we participate in, that doesn't mean we need to be validated when we do these things. It's just this is another sort of vehicle for us to continue our creativity, and it's neither good nor bad. It's just it's part of the process. But then I hear that, you can do anything on the internet. You don't even have to go anywhere. And I thought, that's true. I could just be here and just be creating and getting it out there. But then there is that tactile and tangibleness about art that I don't think you can really make it completely just on the internet. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I actually think that the internet, I don't believe it is the same thing. I really see my art as something that you need to see in real life, because when you see something in real life, everything's on the internet. So what would distinguish my art on the internet rather than another person? I think that it is the fact that when people go to a place in person, there's the transport of getting there. There is the time spent there. There is the interaction, the music. There's so much more to an experience. All their senses are being activated. And sight is through your painting. It's like looking at what you've created. And I think that has immense value. It has the value of, I'm in person and I'm witnessing something, and I've taken the time to witness this.
And then to experience it.
But when it's on the internet, you can scroll to another video or another picture in 2.5 seconds. So if somebody looks at it, it's not the same thing, because they're bombarded by new information constantly. So what would make them remember your painting? Except if there is this really specific thing, and then they like your art, so they'll want to see it in person. But I think that very few people actually look at a painting on the internet, and if it's a very expensive painting, and buy it. I think there aren't many people. They want to see the depth to it in person. They want to understand it more, better. So I think that for me, I don't really like doing the process through the internet, because I also find it very important that people get to know me. They buy my art. but it depends on each person. Some people, they'll do prints. So essentially the picture is the same thing as the prints. So I think it really depends also on the type of work. I work with so much texture that I think it's essential for people to see my art in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like because of the texture, how would they be able to get that through a print? Or is there a way, do they find that they can get that?
So through prints, I usually do my paintings. I usually put my paintings that do not have much texture, just because I think that, it's more representative. And also on top of my prints, I repaint. So I'll paint and add something because for me, uniqueness in art is extremely important. And I want to make sure that all my buyers have something unique. So if you buy my print, there will be differences in every single one of them because I'll paint over them just on little color schemes or like just stuff like that, for them to all be unique. So for me, that's also a way for me to get that texture back if I don't feel like the texture is as good as I would want it to be. But yeah, so I think that would probably be my main thing. I repaint over each print. And yeah.
I was gonna say, how is that possible though? Because if it's on like a certain type of paper, wouldn't that make it wouldn't that just be more difficult for the new owner to store like properly because it could not dry properly, it could not be able to have long-term storage ability, right? Because it could stay wet, it could just make the paper deteriorate. Like, I don't know, you must have a whole way around this, I guess, that you know how to do this. I don't know.
So I work on cardboard.
Oh, okay.
So because it's cardboard, and I work with acrylic, so it does dry really quickly. It's not like oil painting that'll take a month.
Yeah.
So it dries really quickly, and I don't put enough texture. For example, the glass, it won't impede on, like it won't change the kind of, there's not enough texture for it to have an impact.
Okay.
So I do make sure that my prints are something that actually can be hung up afterwards and that they dry well. I'm not going to put water on it. I just put directly the acrylic, and I use like new brushes for like every single color, different color. So there isn't that impact or like that soakiness or like absorption of water. So for that, my prints, there's no problem. But it is a good question because it can cause, like, when people work on different papers, it can have an impact. If they put too much water, they dilute it too much. So I am pretty precautious. But yeah, I've been working with acrylic for so many years now that it almost became kind of automatic to just paint and know what works and doesn't. So in a process that I actually thought about until you said it, which is valid. But yeah.
Yeah, it's become such a medium that you use all the time that you forget how you've gotten to know every single property of it that you're like, oh yeah. Because I'm thinking in watercolor terms, like the watercolor paper, it's so thick and so fussy that if you put too much water, it's going to distort the paper so that it's not going to dry properly. And watercolor paper is so expensive that if you did that, then you really wouldn't be able to use it again. It's just you end up destroying it because you can put too much water.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got a good process there. Because acrylic is so forgiving, and it becomes like plastic, and it becomes so moldable that you can do so much with it.
Yeah, you can do so. I absolutely adore acrylic. I also work with spray paint and oil pastel. But I don't work with oil paintings. I like paint because it doesn't dry quickly enough.
No,
and so
it takes forever.
Yeah, it takes so long that for me, I'm kind of like, if I have an exhibit and I just finished 3 oil paintings, can't bring them. So it does become a bit more complicated. And I've worked with acrylic for so long and I love the medium so much that like I sometimes add like other materials. I like work with many mediums. Like I started something in wool I have something in wool and I just kept going on it yesterday and I created something new. So for me, it's really like, regardless of what I do, I always want acrylic as a base. I think it's just like automatic. I love it. The richness and making colors is very easy with it. So I make all my colors. A lot of people don't make their colors. And that's something I learned recently, actually.
That is weird. I was going to say, I thought everybody makes their colors.
No.
Because you have to mix. Yeah. You have to mix to get the right color. Are people just using it from the tube?
Yeah, so people buy different shades. Like, it's like actually something very common. And some people just don't make their own colors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I never knew that either.
Yeah, I was like, I only buy the primary colors and then I create every single palette I want. But yeah, it's really interesting also to see how different people work. And it's funny because I don't believe there's one medium that's harder than another. Because it's really funny. Some people will tell me like, oh, you paint acrylic? Oh, I could never. It's so hard. And just like the textures you have to create and then the colors. And I was like, what do you work with? And they're like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist. And I was like, well, for
that's harder. That's much harder.
Exactly. And I was just like, it's crazy because we have so many different ways of expressing ourselves. So there's nothing that's actually easier than another thing. It's just each person will have a different reality. So for me, acrylic painting is the easiest medium. But for people, it'll be the hardest medium. Or for some people, oil painting will be the hardest medium. And for me, when people say like, oh, you do acrylic painting, I do oil painting, it's way easier for me. I'm like, what? Like oil painting for me would be way harder. And this like how there's nothing that's actually set in stone. And we love society to always make it seem as though everything is set in stone. But in reality, there's nothing that's actually easier than another thing. Like never. It's just whether or not the way you go about it and live it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's comfort levels, right?
Yeah.
What we're comfortable with. I like to work with acrylic too because it's a really forgiving medium, and you can do so much with it. Whereas I tried watercolor, I tried oil, but they're just so hard because I don't know them, and yeah, charcoal and pastels, and those are a little easier, but yeah, acrylic you can do so many layers in like seconds with it because it dries so fast, which is really good.
Yeah. And there's also different like thickness to acrylic. There's some that is very rich, very thick, and some not so much. So it really depends. And I think that I really enjoy that as well. The fact that like they're different richness. So work with different types of acrylic and mix them. So I feel like that's also really nice. And you can make cheap acrylics seem more expensive,
more robust.
Yeah, and like exactly. And with some cheap like oil paintings, the oil will disconnect to the actual paint sometimes. So it's just like a drag. So I don't know. Like it's just I think I love but more like quality acrylic. I think it's really important as well. Like if I'm going to make paintings, I want it to be good quality. And it's easier to work with, less layering, stuff like that. But for people, I think it's more accessible for people that don't necessarily want to paint as a career and they don't want to buy a small tube for $30, which makes sense. Is an alternative to buy something cheaper and still be able to have that like that paint that's not good quality, but you can still create something with it, as of other mediums not necessarily. So I think that's also nice.
Yeah, there's You were talking about oil paint, and did you know that, I can't remember what the painting was, but one of Rembrandt's paintings is still wet.
Oh,
It's one of his oil paintings. It's still wet because of so many layers, right? If you paint so many layers on top of each other,
yeah.
the layers further down are
Yeah,
not
no,
going to be dry
that's it.
yet. And that's like hundreds of years
No, exactly.
of a painting that's still wet.
So that's why I wouldn't want to have a painting. Like, I would want it to be completely dry. Like, for me, it's like, okay, like, it's not, like, that painting to me is not done. If it's not dry, it's not done. So it's just,
Yeah, exactly. So have you, okay, because on your website, I did see that you were talking about your illness as a young teen. And I was wondering, have people reacted to that information that you shared on the website, or do they just not say anything? They just kind of,
Mhm.
or maybe they do, and then they just kind of.
um, so I'm actually pretty open about it now that my health is better. So when I was sick, really, the only people that were fully aware of it was my family.
Mhm.
They would see me be ill, they would see me in the hospital, they would see me on the floor collapsed every single day. So like they would see me and I couldn't hide it from them. And so when I started sharing the fact that I was sick, it was something that was really difficult at first because when I was in school, people would only get a tiny glimpse of it. They would only see me on my best days, and they would see me like every 2, 3 weeks. I would come in like half a day or stuff like that. So there was a lot of judgment of, oh, she's faking, and that really stuck to me. And it really made me be fearful of judgment when I was younger. And so
Mhm.
at one point, I was like, you know what? This is a part of my story. And this is what makes me me now and makes me be so open minded and a lot more generous and self reflect. I self reflect a lot because when I was sick, I didn't really have a choice but to try to understand what I was living. And so people now, when they ask me about it, it's not a question that comes that often. Example, some people will read my article or stuff like that, or people I'll meet that I talk to them about the fact that I was sick. They'll be way more. They'll show a lot of compassion. But people that knew me at that time of my life, it's almost as though it's still a taboo for them. Right? And I think there might be a bit of guilt on their end. And I think that there is that kind of like that weird,
Mm.
they don't really know how to act with it. They don't really understand it because for them, it's kind of like they were in my life at that point, but so unaware. I think that there might be that, like, there's still that confusion. So
Mhm.
it's not something that's very mentioned.
Mhm.
And it's pretty interesting. And I don't mind it at all. And I kind of tell myself, like,
Mhm.
the people I'll share it with are mostly people that I've just met because it's something that's very simple and it's like simple for me to talk about now. And
Mhm.
it's not something that like makes me feel uncomfortable or extremely vulnerable. It's just a part of who I am and what makes me me. Um, so some people they ask me like, oh, when did you start painting? And the minute you start asking me when I started painting,
Mhm.
I don't really have a choice but to kind of explain how it started, which is with my health issues. So it is something that does come to subject
Mhm.
quite a bit when people ask when I started painting. And I think that more and more I surround myself with people that are very curiously inclined to art. So there is a lot more of questioning about my art and wondering how the whole process and how I came about to painting. So I think that now definitely it's something that I address a lot more. There was even an article that came out about me in a magazine
Mhm.
that was about my health issues. So there is the information and people can definitely ask me about it or and I'm super open. Yeah. But not every
Mhm. No, and I bet, like you said, some people just feel uncomfortable about it. There's still, I guess, a bit of a taboo around any kind of sickness. People just don't
Mm.
want to associate with it in some ways. But then I bet you there probably is some that are just really curious, maybe, and that just want to know a lot. And then I'm guessing that sometimes they may react positively, and sometimes they may just react weird, or I don't know. Like, what is it all? Do you get all kinds of reactions with it, or?
Um, so I mostly get a lot of compassion,
That's good.
or sometimes I do get kind of that confused look of something I get told a lot is, "Oh well, you look super healthy now. You're walking so good." I'm like,
I know, right? They think, oh, if you can't see it, well, then you're fine. And it's like, that's not how it works.
yeah, no,
You can be unwell and then you can still look great. It's like,
yeah, no. So that was very challenging because at some point my health was doing better in the sense that I could walk places and I was a lot more independent. I didn't depend on if I needed to go downstairs or if I needed to go to the bathroom or take a shower. Like I was a lot more independent, so I could do all those things alone.
mhm.
But I was still extremely tired. I would still get extreme fatigue, and I had chronic. Well, I have like um, chronic pain. So like every inch of my body is in pain.
Oh,
Yeah. So for me, that is a lot harder because it's not something we see. And I decided I wanted to train again. So I started training again every single day. And then I have my rest day. And I need to work 2, 3 times harder just to like get my ass out of bed. Just like be like, you know what, I'm gonna go work out. And I think that because I do those things, we kind of assume like, oh, she's not in pain anymore,
hmm,
which unfortunately is not the case. I still deal with chronic pain every single day. I sleep with headaches, so I can't sleep much.
yeah.
So it's stuff like that that become very difficult. And now for the past 2 months, it's been really like it's been catching up, and I feel like my health is very fragile.
Yeah.
But even so, because I went through worse, I also have that need to not worry the people around me and be like, you know what, like my health is okay, and I'll still do all the things I do,
Hmm.
and it's more challenging. But I still remain extremely grateful because I used to not be able to stand up.
Hmm.
And so just being able to do more than that to me is a huge privilege.
Hmm.
So it is still hard when people can't see it because if you can't see it, it's not like a broken wrist. There's no reminder like, oh, that person is living that.
Yeah. If you're in a wheelchair, then they know
Yeah.
there's a problem. But if you're walking around and everything looks fine, then
Yeah.
they don't understand. I know what you mean. I used to get that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also, yeah, exactly. There is that judgment of, oh, well, is it really true?
Yeah.
Or, oh, is she trying just to get attention? Or, oh, why can't she do that today? But she was fine yesterday and she could do it yesterday.
Hmm.
Like, oh, just doesn't want to do it. But it's like, I wish I could do absolutely everything. I wish I could fly and I wish I could do it absolutely anything. But
Yeah.
the reality is that everyone has limits. And
Yeah.
some days my limits are just, they take more room. And it's just how to maneuver life on a day-to-day basis with that pain and without constantly feeling as though you're perceived as weak.
Hmm.
Because that was also a thing, like I would be told, I would feel kind of baby, like, oh, you're tired, oh, go to bed then, go to bed. And it's just like I understand my health issues more than other people. And I know it's like they're trying to help me by giving me advice and telling me like, oh, well, like you should go to bed, relax, like don't worry about it. But it's just that I know that with this headache, I can't sleep. And then being laying down would give me more of a backache, and I would just start falling into sweats and just have like and become sweaty. So for me, it's just like I know what I need to do, and sometimes it might seem weird because it doesn't seem like I'm resting, but I know that resting will be more painful. So it's hard to just like sometimes having even really, really close people to just absolutely not understand and still try to like go into like solution mode. I don't need solution mode. I just need to like, if I tell you I can't do something, to respect that boundary and not assume that it's just I don't want to do it, and not assume that like I need to be cared for like an extreme extent where like I'm like everything is just about me being better and just stuff like that. Like I understand, but sometimes it's just like I want to be perceived as normal. My health is just it's my own thing, and when I do limit, just recognize like I'm not setting the limit because I don't want to do something. It's just that right now I know that if I do, there will be greater repercussions that I'm not willing to take.
Yeah, consequences that you're aware of what will happen if you do what they're asking you. Yeah, I understand that exactly, because there's a lot of people who think there's a sort of clear cut, exact way of, okay, well, I'm a like they're thinking, I guess, in their head, maybe subconsciously, that they're caregivers. Okay, this is how this person can fit into this slot because they're showing these signs, and I know how to, like there's just a whole process about it that they think they're helping because this is how they've always done it before with other people in their lives, or if they are caregivers and they've become so practiced in how they've handled people that have been, quote, sick or in their life, right? That they think they can just put a label on it and then it's all better. But no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it's silly. Anyway, I can't believe we've been on for an hour now. How are you doing? I'm sorry that we were chatting for so long.
No, it's actually good. I actually feel like the discussion is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really nice. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Claudia Dorey, for being on the show today, and your contact links as well as your website shared on the Tangentialist Facebook page.
Yeah, well, I actually think this podcast, like, I feel like up till now we've had really great discussions, and I feel like we connect very well. Like, we seem to have like a similarities in our lives, and just like be able to really connect. And I think that that's really nice. And I do believe that when we're having discussions, it's so important to have the authentic first interaction in a podcast.
Oh, great.
Especially. So I do believe that there could be a lot done with this conversation. It's like very authentic. It's just like it just flowed. We went through questions, but it's more like it's very like a sharing process, and I think that's really nice. Yeah. And I am planning on doing my own full exhibit, solo exhibit. So I'm looking to rent out a room and stuff like that. I'm just looking at different places, different wall sizes. I want it to be accessible as well, the location, so stuff like that. But I'm really excited. And it's going to be free. So it's going to be free. Yeah, I want people to be able to come in and have access to my art without having to pay. And the cost will go to me, and if they want to donate, well then great. But if not, if they don't have the money for it, well, that's no problem.
Art for the people, right? Yeah, not trying to make money on it always. That's one of the one of the downfalls of the bigger galleries, how you have to pay for it. It's like should be for the people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure meeting you as well. And it was really nice to see you in person in a way. I'm really glad we had this discussion, even if I was a bit tired.
All right. Thank you so much, Claudia. And it was great chatting with you today.
It was really nice meeting you.
Well, thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you. And if you do start painting again, I'd love to see what you create. It would really be my pleasure. You can send me pictures, and I wish you the best of luck also in that sphere.
Yeah, I think you do well. I think you do very well.
And if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach
Thank
out
you so much.
either on my phone number. I do look at my phone number sometimes a bit more because I look at it in the evening as well, not only on my work hours. So yeah, if you can always reach out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
You have a nice day.
You too. You too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.